It's been over 5 years since the launch of Disney+, the platform that promised to bring absolutely all of Disney's content to our fingertips. However, all these years later, there are still iconic series missing from the platform. Tarzan, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, which I actually covered in another video where I explain why Pixar hated it so much, and Aladdin are just a few examples of series that remain inaccessible on Disney+. And it's precisely that last one that I'd like to revisit today. Hi, I'm Dr. Panda, the only panda who found Wonka's golden ticket. And in this video, we're going to talk about Aladdin, the animated series. A series that many people remember fondly, full of great characters and fun stories, and one that's never going to be available on Disney+. And in this video, I'll tell you why. Aladdin, the animated series, aired on Disney Channel from February 1994 to November 1995, and was set a year after the original movie. Aladdin is now engaged to Princess Jasmine and must navigate his new royal responsibilities, which include solving mysteries, finding treasures, and defending Agrabah from various villains with malevolent intentions. The series had 3 seasons and a total of 86 episodes, wrapping up with the movie Aladdin and the King of Thieves, where, spoiler alert, Aladdin is finally reunited with his father. It was produced by Alan Zaslove and Tad Stones, who are also known for their work on Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck. Tad Stones also served as executive producer for Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, and I actually had the chance to exchange messages with him about why Aladdin isn't available on the platform, but we'll get to that in a bit. The series featured nearly all the main characters from the original film: Aladdin, Jasmine, Abu, the Sultan, the Magic Carpet, a reformed Iago who's now part of Aladdin's team, though still pretty mischievous, and a nerfed genie whose powers have been reduced to just a fraction of what they once were after gaining his freedom, preventing Aladdin from catching a case of plot armor, at least to an extent. Besides the classic characters, the show introduced a colorful cast of new ones, especially some memorable villains like Mechanicals, a mad scientist from Greece who uses his intellect to build gadgets in his quest to take over the world, and who's also a cleanliness freak. Mozenrath, a powerful young sorcerer who rules the land of Black Sand, whose thirst for power leads him to clash with Aladdin multiple times. He's actually the most competent villain in the series, so much so that he was not only considered as the main antagonist for the 3rd movie, but at one point there were plans to reveal that he was Aladdin's long-lost brother. In the end, though, they decided to focus the story on Aladdin's father instead. Mirage was an evil sorceress who claimed to be the incarnation of all evil, with powers over illusions, dreams, and shadows. She ruled the realm of Morbia, where her sphinx-shaped temple stood. Her only goal was to reduce Agrabah to dust. Ajed Al-Gabraic always stood out to me as a super original character because he explored a part of Aladdin's story that's rarely touched on: Genie's past masters. Ajed was precisely that, a former master of the genie, whose greed made him give up the lamp to a sorcerer in exchange for eternal life, without realizing he would continue aging forever. Now, he roams the world as an aimless old man. But the standout villain of the series has to be Abismal. He was introduced in the movie The Return of Jafar, where he becomes Jafar's unwilling sidekick after accidentally finding the evil genie's lamp in a desert well. Abismal's ego is as massive as his incompetence, and he's always accompanied by his sidekick Harood Hazibin, voiced by James Avery, who you probably remember as Uncle Phil in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. After the series ended, Aladdin made a special appearance in a crossover episode of Hercules titled Hercules and the Arabian Night, in which Hades and Jafar team up to create a misunderstanding between Aladdin and Hercules by kidnapping Abu and Icarus. Jafar tricks Hercules into thinking Aladdin is behind it, while Pain and Panic tell Aladdin that Hercules kidnapped Abu. They fight until someone says the name Martha, and then they reconcile and take down the villains to save their friends. The Aladdin series was charming, with clever, well-developed plots and a light tone thanks to the characters, especially Genie, who constantly made pop culture references and silly jokes that kept the show fun. And that's why it's a shame that we'll probably never see it on Disney+. But why do you say that, Mr. Fluffy Panda? First of all, I have a doctorate. And second, I'm glad you asked, dear admirer of Agrabah, because it's time to get into it. Aladdin is actually one of the most requested shows on Disney+. In practically every forum or thread about the platform, you'll find desperate fans bringing it up over and over, wondering when the show will finally be available to watch. Oh, poor innocent souls. Some say it's a matter of residuals, that Disney doesn't want to pay the actors who worked on the series, so they'd rather bury it forever. But I disagree. To start with, lots of other shows from that era are on Disney Plus, like the Hercules series or Timon and Pumbaa, so it seems odd that Aladdin would be the exception. If it were a residuals issue, none of those shows would be up either. Plus, residuals aren't that significant a cost for Disney, especially considering that actor contracts at the time didn't account for streaming. And although actor pay has improved since the 2023 strikes, the Aladdin series was unavailable even before all that happened, so that can't be the real reason. Others argue that Genie's pop culture references are the problem, that they might infringe on copyrights. But that doesn't really add up either. Genie's references fall under fair use because they're parodies, and if those references were a legal issue now, they would have been a problem back in the 90s too, but they weren't. Another theory is that Disney wants to focus on making new series instead of relying on the old ones. There's some truth to that, especially since in this year, Disney reportedly has allocated $1 billion to new Disney Plus productions. But that theory also doesn't hold up on its own. Over the years, Disney has continued adding classic content to the platform, like Recess, Lilo and Stitch the series, or Gargoyles. So, while they do want to create new shows, Disney knows that classics are still a huge part of what their audience wants, and they still rely on them across the platform. So, what's the real reason? Well, for that, we need to revisit an old Disney Parks attraction. Splash Mountain was a log flume ride that opened in 1989 at Disneyland, and soon became one of the most beloved and iconic rides in the parks. Guests would wait in line for hours just to ride the attraction, enjoy its music, and see its colorful characters. And even though there were no major scandals or mass complaints, one random day in 2023, Disney suddenly announced the ride would be closed and urgently rethemed. The problem for Disney was that the ride was based on this movie, and that was problematic. This will circle back to Aladdin in a bit. Just bear with me. Song of the South follows a 7-year-old boy who is visiting his grandmother's plantation for an extended stay. Johnny befriends Uncle Remus, an elderly worker on the plantation, and takes joy in hearing his tales about the adventures of Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear. Now, while the film's biggest crime is that its story is just incredibly bad, seriously, don't waste your time watching it. It also carried connotations that many found culturally insensitive, like its romanticized portrayal of plantation life. The thing is, the movie came out in 1946. 77 years had passed, but Disney was still panicked, absolutely terrified actually, that the ride's origins would come back to bite them. In other words, they were afraid of a scandal that hadn't happened yet, and were willing to do anything to prevent it. And that's exactly what's happening with the Aladdin series. Disney is extremely paranoid about being seen as politically incorrect in any way, so they want to distance themselves from anything that could even remotely cause trouble. Aladdin has been a headache for Disney ever since the first film released. In fact, all 3 movies on Disney Plus include a disclaimer warning that the content may depict stereotypes or negative representations. Which, by the way, those disclaimers used to be big and right at the start of the movie, but for some reason, they're now hidden away in the details section. Anyway, when Aladdin was released in 1992, it sparked controversy from certain groups over the lyrics in its opening song, Arabian Nights. The version of the song that was played in theaters, which introduces us to the Middle Eastern setting of the movie, used to say, "Where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face, it's barbaric, but hey, it's home." Yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna be singing this evening. This sparked protests from the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. I mean, the lyrics of the song, not me saying that I won't be singing this evening. Anyway, Disney decided to change the lyrics on the VHS version to, "Where it's flat and immense and the heat is intense. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home." But that still wasn't safe enough, so for the live-action version, the lyrics were changed once again, this time to, "Where you wander among every culture and tongue. It's chaotic, but hey, it's home." Just that one song has already been a roller coaster of controversy for Disney. Beyond that, Aladdin has also been accused of reinforcing racial stereotypes and inaccurately portraying the Middle East. In short, Aladdin has always been surrounded by controversy, and that makes Disney very uncomfortable. But of course, Aladdin is one of Disney's most iconic characters, so they can't erase him just like that. The Aladdin films are so important that they show up in theme parks, video games, and even on Broadway. But the series? That's a different story. Even though many of us loved it, the show is far more niche than the films. Way more people know and love the movies than the ones who even remember the series existed, so Disney can afford to just quietly leave it out.
What series? I don't know what you're talking about.
And by doing so, they try to avoid offending anyone at all costs. which seems to be the company's most important goal as of today. Sure, Aladdin was also the first Disney movie to feature a non-white princess, and helped spark interest in Middle Eastern culture for many people. But the House of Mouse's fear of controversy is way stronger than that. And sadly, the fans are the ones who pay the price. I took the opportunity to ask Tad Stones, the producer of the series, if he knew anything about why it's not on Disney+. And he replied, "I've been fan-panding ever since. Tad says that Disney has never given him or other creators any clarification on why their series aren't available on the platform, and while they initially thought the show would eventually be added, that still hasn't happened after several years. And the way I see it, it probably never will." Do you agree with Disney burying the Aladdin series forever? Let me know in the comments. Also, do you remember Lunatics? Did you know a Warner executive hung up a picture of the show in the Warner Bros. Offices as a reminder of everything they should never do? I'll tell you all about it in this video. Subscribe for more. Dr. Panda out.